Hi and welcome back to Cheeky Crypto. Today guys, we're diving into the world of Zilliqa to talk specifically about the price action of ZIL. As we get into this video, if you do find it useful and informative, hit the like button. I really do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, then why not go ahead and subscribe, tap that bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with absolutely everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. Right, with that said, done out of the way, let's dive down into the charts here and talk a little bit around what's going on with ZIL. So we're going to give you that overview quickly with the weekly chart. So we can obviously see there are 5 impulse waves to the upside. This takes Zilliqa up to about 92.5 cents. Okay, that's based on the performance of wave 3 and wave 4. Okay, so when you take that into consideration with a fib, high to low, that takes us to about 92.5 cents. Okay, and this really started back in March of 2020. Wave 1 obviously was June, peaked in June. Sideways trading for wave 2, really sharp for wave 4. This is the alternative kind of method, I guess, for your Elliott theory. So again, those two things are opposite. One is sideways, one is sharp. Okay, yeah, they can basically alternate depending on which one is which. So if wave 2 was sharp, then wave 4 would have been flat. But obviously, wave 2 was very flat. And then we started to see a nice spike for wave 3, taking us up to some pretty good heights. Now, this is 11,490% in gains in 420 days, okay? That is significantly higher than things like Bitcoin and Ethereum. Bitcoin was only 1,600% for the same time period. We had Ethereum with only 5,100% for the same time period, right? So Zilliqa has definitely outperformed Bitcoin and Ethereum, just to name 2, right? So it's obviously been performing well. Now, the correction brought us down into a nice low area for accumulation ahead of our spike to the upside. Obviously, when we are talking about waves, and specifically these impulse waves, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and there are, of course, waves within waves, so we shouldn't expect anything to kind of move all in one go. Instead, there'll be several corrections in the middle of our push to the upside. You can see even in our wave 3 here that there were several corrections, including our wave 2 as well as our wave 1. Okay, so everything just move in waves, depending on what level that you look at it at. We're targeting 876% from the current price to our target of 92.5 cents. Okay, so let's jump down into our daily. This is where we take a look at the next level, where we really review what's been going on. Now, unlike some other altcoins, we are still waiting to pierce through this downward trend. Things are definitely lining up for it, but timing isn't quite ready just yet. So we're watching quite eagerly for this one. Once we kind of break that downward trend, then we should be looking pretty good. This looks like it's going to happen around November at the latest, but it could literally happen at any moment. Timing is always the hardest thing to get in the space. Okay, so obviously we do have a downward trend and an upward trend, but there's a few other things also going on here. So there is, of course, the cup and handle. Okay, this takes us up towards our 18.9 cent area. Okay, we've spoken about this previously on the last Zilliqa video. So we are, of course, targeting that 18.9 cent zone for ZIL within the month of October, beginning of November. Like I said, timing is the hardest thing to gauge. Okay, but basically, if we do complete that cup and handle, that's the target. The cup and handle pattern itself is only 60 to 70% accurate, and therefore it's important that we obviously acknowledge that it may actually deviate away from this pattern altogether. That being said, though, there are some pretty good things going on in the space, and we should be anticipating a good surge to the upside with the rest of the crypto space as the market starts to liven up again. Now, obviously, this downward trend and upward trend is causing a triangular wedge, which does look like it's going to come to a bit of a head the second week in November. Okay, but of course, we can, just get a test on this and then move straight out of here. Usually, it happens earlier than the actual kind of real pinpoint there. But if we do bounce in here for a couple moments, we'll get nice and squeezed and then eventually bounce to the upside, in my opinion. Of course, the same could be said for a downward trend, but we are not bearish right now. Everything for Bitcoin is looking pretty good. So inverse head and shoulders, cup and handle, etc. Everything's on Bitcoin is looking like it's moving to the upside. So overall, I think that's less likely, and I actually think we're more than likely going to have a push to the upside overall, targeting that 18.9 cent with the completion of the cup and handle. I think that is quite a likely scenario, but again, it could deviate away from that. Now, it's at this point that we're going to just jump over to the EVI.io dashboard, and for those who are unfamiliar, link in the description below. Do sign up, it's completely free, and you're going to get that a little bit more detail than you don't normally have available on the charts, right? So EVI, they use artificial intelligence and machine learning to help you understand the underlying value of cryptocurrencies. Ultimately, that AI has been right more times than I can count, and it's important that we acknowledge what it's actually suggesting to us, and it does get updated every 24 hours at midnight, so you understand exactly what the AI is picking up on really early in the day. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to shoot down here for Zilliqa. We can see that it's a B3 rating overall, so relatively neutral, but on the cusp of the worser side of things. So we're watching that to see if it slips down any. But as we come down here, there are a few things that are concerning, and we should be expecting volatility on those smaller time frames until this gets resolved, right? So we have an 𝗕𝗓𝗪 ratio of a rating of D. The 𝗕𝗓𝗪 ratio is your liquidity, and the rating of D is the worst it can be. So there are some liquidity-based problems, but this is not isolated just to Zilliqa. Many altcoins are experiencing the very same liquidity-based issue, and this could be that there are several exchanges or decentralized exchanges that are experiencing liquidity-based problems for some of these altcoins. Not all altcoins are affected by this, but there is a large portion of altcoins that are affected by it. Cardano is one, Zilliqa is another, Bitcoin also has liquidity-based problems, and there are a handful of others like VeChain as well. So it's important that we acknowledge that there are some problems with liquidity, and hopefully that will get resolved shortly. But we have seen this volatility and this 𝗕𝗓𝗪 ratio issue pretty much for the month of September during that volatility. So right now we're looking to see if we can correct that 𝗕𝗓𝗪 ratio, that liquidity-based problem, get that resolved, and then we should be moving on nicely. Now, that issue with liquidity is also compounded by the fear and greed index. Okay, this is also a sentiment indicator that is showing us that Zilliqa has extreme fear right now. So although we are looking to kind of break to the upside, I don't expect that to happen until we sort this sentiment out and sort that liquidity-based problem out. With that being said, though, longer term, everything's lining up quite nicely. So sentiment aside on the smaller time frames, and of course liquidity, these two things could be resolved within 24 to 48 hours, really small time things and not overly concerning. But when we actually couple up that data with some other metrics, it actually looks like this is people willing to sell their Zilliqa at a discounted rate through frustrations or whatever. And that might be an opportunity that you might want to take advantage of. Now, obviously, it's important that I acknowledge that I am not a financial advisor, nor is Chris. And it's important that you do your own research. A part of that research might be using the EVI.io dashboard to help you understand that underlying value of your cryptocurrencies. Couple that with TradingView and the charts I have drawn up here, and maybe you go and do some more in-depth research into the teams and the actual protocols and things like that as well. With all of that information available, you should be able to make some pretty good decisions. Now, I'm going to go down to the next level on this, and I'm going to talk about the Sharpe ratio. The Sharpe ratio is your risk-reward ratio. And for Zilliqa right now, it's an A2 rating. That's the second best rating that you can get. So the EVI.io dashboard, that artificial intelligence, is indicating to us that the rewards outweigh the risks. And we can obviously see that the sentiment in the market is incredibly fearful. You put those two things side by side, that tells me personally that actually people are willing to sell their Zilliqa at a discounted rate. And we are knowing, or we are in the know, and we know that basically the reward ratio, the risk reward ratio is in our favor, saying that the rewards outweigh the risk. You might want to be buying up that fear when that fear presents itself, which is right now. So again, it's important that we obviously do that research, understand exactly what is going on with the protocol, the team, and everything that is the Zilliqa ecosystem is trying to do. Obviously, couple that up with some fear and greed index, with the Sharpe ratio, the 𝗕𝗓𝗪 issues, the profitability, moving averages. Everything's looking pretty interesting for Zilliqa if you wanted to potentially get in to this project. With that being said, let's jump back to the charts and actually review that smaller time frame, because obviously we are talking about volatility specifically within those smaller time periods, specifically for that fear and greed index and that 𝗕𝗓𝗪 issue. We can see that we are in the oversold area of the chart for the stochastic RSI. This looks like a pretty solid area of previous level of support. So I'm going to quickly mark that up with a horizontal ray. And what we mean by that, if I actually just drop this in right here, we can see that this is an area that we've previously found good support on. We come down to, or we just touch on and we bounce off from it, right? You can see it here, and we're touching on it right now. So the expectation at this point should be that we start to see a bit of a push to the upside, and we start to actually see this the stochastic RSI actually increase and push us up to the upside. Now, obviously there's going to be resistance, I think, found at about 10.1 cent. I think that's probably the likelihood of as far as we're likely to push until that sentiment in the market shifts and changes. I expect more sideways trading, as we have seen previously across loss here until that sentiment works itself out and the liquidity-based issue is also resolved. That being said, though, we are obviously working ourselves into this triangular wedge where we do expect eventually a good break to the upside overall. Guys, it's just a matter of biding our time and being overly patient with it. We got the breakout here in September before getting pulled back down, and again, this is a very similar pattern to what we're seeing, but on a much larger time scale. So overall, everything's looking pretty good for Zilliqa. There is going to be some volatility on the smaller time frames, probably for the next week or so, and then once we're past that and the market starts to warm up, the sentiment starts to shift and change, we should be targeting 18.9 cent, and we should be looking to get Zilliqa up towards 92.5 cent overall. Guys, I'm going to leave the video there. Hopefully you have found it useful and informative. If you have, hit the like button. I really do appreciate that. If you happen to be new, why not go ahead and subscribe, tap that bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with absolutely everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. With that said, done and out of the way, I hope everyone has a fantastic day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.